Hello, everybody, and welcome into Season 5 at Tuesday Night Thunder, race number 3. Tonight, we make our first stop at the World Center of Racing. That's right, it's Daytona International Speedway. Joining me in the booth tonight, as always, co-host Dawson Wise. Dawson, how you feeling here tonight?
Doing well, Austin. Glad to be back and ready for the first trip to the World Center of Racing. I can't wait. It's usually a fun venue. It's been a fun venue the past couple weeks for some of the racing we've had on other nights.
Yeah, it certainly has. Well, drivers rolling off for the first time here tonight, so let's get right into it with tonight's starting grid. Garrett Maines will take the pole, puts down a 50.550. It's going to be Dylan Basin on his outside in second. Matthew Baker for NBG Motorsports will start in the third spot here tonight with his teammate Jeff Mert to his outside in fourth. Jared Haynes starts in fifth. Richard Elliott rounds out row number 3 in sixth. It's going to be Landon Velicki in 7th, Joe Herda in 8th, Evan Carlbon back in 9th, and Mike Davenport rounding out your top 10.
Row 6 will be Brian Bissard in the 27 alongside the VAR entry of Justin Mills. Row 7, Jonathan Herbert and Mitch Regatas. Row 8, Mark Math will start from 15th in the 199. Chase Mastretta for Nightmare Esports will start from 16th. Row 9, Dylan Jones, the all-white 11, is back in the field tonight alongside the Hyper Motorsports captain John Ward. And on row 10, rounding at the top 20, Matt Lee in 19th for Nightmare Esports and J.R. Miller in the 78 for Team PGR.
Joshua McCullough from McCullough Motorsports starts 21st here tonight. Brock Westmoreland in 22nd. Looking on back to row number 12, it's Christopher McCullough and Ken McCullough Jr., the two captains for McCullough Motorsports. Mark Vondell back in 25th, Joey Galati 26th, and Jimmy Emos rounds out the 27-car field here tonight. All right, breaking down your race info. Again, it is race number 3 here of Season 5. We're in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Going to be 60 laps here tonight with a stage break on lap 20. 40% fuel, 3 sets of tires, something a little different this season. 140 degrees starting track temp. It's going to be scorching hot, and it is going to be a good one. Daytona a little bit tighter, 2.5 miles in length, and still over 30 degrees of banking in the corner. A perfect place to go racing for Season 5, Race 3 of Tuesday Night Thunder. Here we go, pace car off. Green flag is in the air. We're underway at Daytona.
Lap 1 complete, lap 2 on the board in race number 3. Garrett Maines, Dylan Basin side by side for the lead. It's the pair of NBG teammates behind them sporting brand new paint schemes aboard those two hoods. The logo for the 2025 PGR 500. For the first time, the logo has been released. It was released last week, and boy, it is a good one. A throwback to the 2003 Great American Race, the Daytona 500, and we're paying homage to it with the PGR 500. What a race that's going to be next year, early 2025, January to February. I can't wait. And those two doing a really good job of some advertising for the race here early in this one, but up top, Mills and a couple of others. I believe that's the Hyper Motorsports captain, John Warder, on the move from about 8 rows back.
Yeah, trying to get some action going here early. A lot of guys like to do that, kind of mix things up early on before you start to calm down and really get into a rhythm. But you said it, the PGR 500, everybody's got it circled. It's a ways away, but it's never too early to practice. But a lot of drivers going to have their eyes set on capturing that Season 5 championship. Still got a long ways to go, but see a couple new drivers this season, a couple of returners, and boy, we can't forget about the absolute heater of a season that Matthew Baker went on last season. Garrett Maines, of course, won the championship as they run now bumper to tail I guess I should say nose to tail, as on the inside, Dylan Basin lost a little bit of help. And look at this, the 5 of Matthew Baker. He's going to go to the lead into turn 3.
Oh boy, but almost a little adversity doing it. He got wicked loose on the bumper of Basin right there as he dropped down. As he went to turn left, this track is so hot, so slick tonight that he was completely out of shape. Luckily, was able to use the apron kind of to his advantage, keeps the car straight, although it ruins that run that he got through the middle of the corner. And as such, Garrett Maines, to help with Jeff Merck and Richard Elliott, is going to go back to the point. These two familiar foes, and once again on the front row, Baker, not a ton to race for tonight besides regular season points. He's won his way to the playoffs already, should he make his 9 required starts. The other driver that won is Matt Lee in the 04, both in the field tonight, both trying to approach that 9-start threshold. Again, look at Mills and Ward. Now they might have some takers this time. Jeff Merck thought about it. Jonathan Herbert's thinking about it. Couple cars trying to go to the third lane, getting very, very antsy early, and on a hot track, it's a bit of a risky move, but making it work so far.
And it is, too, because remember, Daytona not quite as wide as Talladega. 3 wide here is probably about the equivalent of 4 wide at Talladega. So you can make that third lane work, especially with this hot track temp that you just mentioned, Dawson. But you got to be careful, especially early on. I think now's the time to get a feel for it, because we know when these tires wear out, these cars are going to become a handful, and that's when we might see some guys start to maybe fade out, maybe not make as many aggressive moves. But if you can get to the front and get yourself in some better track position before you start to calm down, it's going to be a good setup for later on in this race. Still 2x2, though, up front. Matthew Baker on the inside in the Chevy Camaro. On the outside, it's the Ford Mustang of Garrett Maines. He'll get clear, though, off the bumper of Jeff Merck, and he now drops down to the inside in front of Matthew Baker. But look at this. Up top, the 12 of Justin Mills is looking to go to the lead with a push from John Ward off of turn 4.
Yeah, Jonathan Herbert in line as well. The 87 sporting the Hyper Motorsports colors tonight, so a new look for the 87 machine. Oh, he's going to get some contact there with Joe Huerta. Everybody comes away okay. It was a weird look as that shot the 87 right to his right, towards the outside wall. He keeps it collected, and that kills every bit of momentum that top lane had with Ward and Mills, and they're going to go backwards now. Richard Elliott may cut his teammate a break here. He will. Mills and Ward both going to catch a break. They're both going to slip in line, and both gained a ton of track position. My goodness. Matthew Baker to the outside. Dylan Basin, I don't blame him here. He's going to the back. He's led a couple laps tonight. He's going right back where it's a little safer in the back of the field, because these guys are very antsy on a hot track tonight so far.
Oh, man, Mills trying to make a decision on if he's clear to the bottom. It looks like he is, and he'll take it. Gets in front of the one of Joe Huerta, but, man, that was really close as now. Man, on the inside, you see even Merck, he's starting to bounce around a little bit as Garrett Maines takes a look up top with help from John Ward. 8 laps complete now as they cross the line. Actually make it 7. It'll be 8 next time around. And looking at fuel strategy and how far they can go before that first green flag pit stop, 40% in these cars probably gets you, if I had to guess, maybe somewhere around 20 laps, maybe a little bit less than that, as a matter of fact. Point being, I think they're going to have to pit before we get to this stage break, at least from the way things worked out last season. And so if you're some of these drivers up front, I think that's the reason you try to maintain this track position. And Dawson, you talked about Matthew Baker already being locked in, but I believe these stage points would still help him as we get closer to the playoffs.
Yeah, they would, absolutely, and that's kind of what I said. He has something to race for in the sense of regular season points still, but in the fact of playoffs, he's already locked in. He would like to enjoy some extra points cushion when he gets there, so he's going to continue to race for stage points. Man, Justin Mills, I was caught watching him for a second there in turns 3 and 4 because he is really starting to struggle with the handling of that race car. Baker, he's going to, whoa. Well, I thought he was getting out of line to go to the back willingly. He's not. They scramble as Baker, and yeah, now they're wrecking. Wow.
That's going to be, looked like the 7 of Jared Haynes, the first car that went around. His rear bumper did get torn off briefly. I think a couple others got into the grass as well, as that 7 car slid down the banking in turns 1 and 2. And yeah, he's got pretty heavy damage. Remember, there is no fast repair here tonight, so whatever damage you sustained, you got to try to go in and get fixed optionally. And for the 7, that's a pretty hefty amount of damage. I think he'll still be able to continue, but in terms of competitive chance to win this race, that may have come to an end here with just 8 of 60 laps complete here tonight. And you know, you kind of had the right reaction there, Dawson. Same thing happened on my end, where kind of wondering what the heck just happened there, as we had kind of an odd checkup up front with Garrett Maines and Joe Huerta going into turn 1, and I'm not really sure what happened. So we're going to go back and look at the replay first and then break it down from there. So watch Joe Huerta in the 1, and then we'll go to Garrett Maines in just a minute. You can actually see both of these cars. Watch as they get into turn 1. They're both going to have kind of their own issues. The one's the car that really gets out of line. Oh, that's what it is. You can see Garrett's pushing Matthew Baker. He gets him almost hooked into the wall. And then I think Joe Huerta's reaction was kind of seeing that, and that's why he jumped down onto the apron. And then that apron here being as flat as it is, that one car starts to slide back up, and when he does, Jared Haynes just really nowhere to go. And as he gets into the back of the 1, he gets run into by Landon Veliky in the 62, who also had nowhere to go. There's Carl Bond getting involved. Davenport and Westmoreland, the 2 teammates, they're able to check up on the high side and wait for that 62 to slide down. So it looks like the worst of the damage, Dawson, is going to go to Huerta and that 7 of Jared Haynes. But overall there, just looks like a close call up front that led to the accident out back.
Yeah, it looks like a bit of an offset push to me as well. Going into one, Garrett Maines and Matthew Baker, and then as Baker tries to come back down the hill, the track is so unbelievably hot tonight that the car actually gets out from under him and escapes a little bit, and that slows the lineup even more, and it's a chain reaction on back. Every single week, I feel like I say when that chain reaction starts, the further back it goes, the further back you are in the pack, the worse it gets, the worse it feels in the car in terms of the amount of slowdown. So that's probably what happened there again. Unfortunate for the guys involved now. Not a ton of big damage there. Some guys with some cosmetic damage, but I don't think there's anything too terribly major besides maybe Joe Huerta losing the back bumper. But as we've seen with Matthew Baker, you can go down pit road and you can repair that damage and come back out and be A-okay. So maybe everybody getting away with one there, but a bit of a stack up out back after a close call up front.
Yeah, we take a couple more looks at it here. I think if we're at Talladega, that's the save, right? Nobody wrecks because the apron's banked, but it's just, being flat for Joe Huerta. It doesn't matter how hard he tries. When you're going almost 200 miles an hour and then you go from 30 degrees of banking to 0 degrees of banking, that car's going to have a tendency to slide back up to the banking, and just wrong place, wrong time for Jared Haynes. Now, you did notice one more pretty big impact here for, I believe it's going to be the 8. No, it was the 27, actually. I take that back. And so that could be a decent amount of damage for Brian Bessard in that 27 machine, as he took the worst of it, at least on the front end, and then talked about Joe Huerta and Jared Haynes getting the rear end damage, which you noted, hopefully mostly cosmetic. And then Brock Westman, boy, he did a pretty good job sneaking around that. Maybe a little bit of contact with the wall, but all things considered, it has certainly been a lot worse. All right, as we turn our attention back live and up front, saw some pit stops there, and that's because if you went in, you are now going to be good to go on fuel for the rest of this stage. So up front, you've got Richard Elliott leading the way, Matt Lee in second, and then Jeff Merck back in third. The 12, Justin Mills, he's in fourth, and then John Ward, the Hyper Motorsports captain, currently rounding out your top 5. Garrett Maines, last season's champion, back in 6th. Matthew Baker in 7th. Christopher McCullough 8th. Joshua McCullough in 9th. And Ken McCullough Jr. currently rounding out your top 10. By the way, it looks like a new scheme for Ken here tonight. See, he's got the Goodwrench number 3 car. Good-looking scheme for him. Who knows? Maybe it's a change of luck.
He kind of could use the change of luck after a near win back on Thursday night. He was leading late in the stages of that race, got caught up in an incident. So maybe tonight's the night he gets the luck that he needs to get a win here in Tuesday Night Thunder. A former winner in this series, looking to get back to victory lane and lock his way into the playoffs. And look, the gamble that Justin Mills and John Ward took, being the only two really to go to the outside of the racetrack to the safer barrier, it's paid off. 4th and 5th, they got the track position they wanted and now have a really good look at stage points here with 10 laps to go in stage 1.
And if you remember back to last season, we remember how many wins Matthew Baker had, yet when we came down to the end of the regular season, it was still really, really close between him and Garrett for the last couple races for who was going to get that regular season championship. And the reason for that was stage points. Garrett had by far the most stage wins of any driver in the field. So, everybody's, of course, looking for that win. But at the same time, this stage is equally as important, even if you're a driver that's already in the playoffs. And, of course, if you're one that's not in the playoffs, because that could determine at the end of the season, maybe just sneaking in or maybe just sneaking out that regular season championship over a driver that potentially has more wins than, say, somebody else does.
Yeah, absolutely. So going to be interesting to see here. 9 laps to go in stage 1. A furious start to this one because the track is hot. The tires are getting hot. It's kind of like when we went back to the SummerSlam 499, it's kind of like what we saw there where tire wear kicked in really quick, and especially in that 188 laps, it really wore on. Well, in a 60-lap race, we saw in the 50-lap prelim races, guys struggled with it. They're going to struggle with it tonight on a red-hot racetrack. You can already tell. Even these guys at the front, the guys that have been here before a number of times, are really struggling with their race cars right now.
I'll tell you one thing, it makes it fun to watch for us, that's for sure. All the slipping and sliding, and 140-degree track temp. Talk about that's what we started with, and you can look at the weather here. It certainly has not changed much since then. Still 140, and I think that's pretty much as hot as it can be. And so for these drivers, you talked about at SummerSlam, the closest thing they've had to a track temp this hot, but this one even hotter than that. So we'll see what happens. A couple drivers probably took fresh tires on that pit stop, and we are ready to go. Green flag is back in the air. 12 laps complete, 9 to go here in stage number 1, and it's a great restart for the 0 of Richard Elliott on his outside. That's Matt Lee getting a push from Justin Mills. Merck and Ward lined up, but Garrett's there on the outside as well, so it's going to be a drag race through 1 and 2. Ooh, Mills is dancing around a little bit. That might break up the outside. It will. Looks like the inside's going to have the momentum off of turn 2.
And that tells me that a lot of these guys up front did not take fresh tires under the caution, valued track position a little bit more because these guys are still struggling a little bit with the handling of the race cars and trying to keep it underneath them. And you can tell Justin Mills, he's trying his best, but that car is waving back and forth. Big moment for Mills. He's going to go around.
Big hit for the 12 into the outside safer barrier. He collects the 94. The 71's involved. We got more wrecking further back. Oh, my goodness. The 87 of Jonathan Herbert's involved. He had nowhere to go. Joey Galati and Christopher McCullough and Ken McCullough Jr., who we just talked about. Both of those cars destroyed. Chris is going to tow. That'll be an end to his night. I think Ken McCullough Jr. might be getting ready to do the same. He'll stay out, but again, that's heavy damage to the front nose of the 3 car. And man, Dawson, you called it, but you could see it coming as soon as they got into turn 3, even in 1 and 2. That 12 car just looked really, really out of shape, and man, that car just went around on him. It seemed like so quickly, he just couldn't ever save it. Let's go back and take a look at this one here. So watch Justin Mills, second in line, pushing Matt Lee, and I think I have a good idea of how he's going to get himself loose as they get into the corner. Man, it just gets slightly out of shape. The front nose starts to, it looks like the front loses grip first, and then when it does, he tries to chase it and just can't catch up to it. Man, that was a huge hit for a couple guys further back, most notably, again, Chris, Ken, and Joey, as I think Mills, I was going to say maybe snuck away, but you see that right front suspension all torn up, so that might be an end to his night as well. Dawson, we're going to go back and look at it on board, but what did it look like to you?
It looked like the same thing we've kind of said with these cars over the past several weeks. Really, since that update mid to late July, where it felt like this car got a little bit more unstable than we were used to, especially on worn tires. And right there, on the first run, it was pretty obvious Justin Mills was having some problems with handling. On this early part of this run, though, in 1 and 2, you could really tell something was off. The tires were just clearly not really responding. They were heated up. They were worn already. And as he gets in, he tries to set the car down on the banking, and it doesn't set. He gets a little bit loose. He tries to catch it. He gets into Jeff Merck, and then from there, it is on. As he clips Jeff Merck, he shoots right back across to his right. And from there, the guys behind him really nowhere to go for Chris McCullough, Kenny McCullough, Evan Carlbon. They all pile in so fast there. There's not much you can do, and they're innocent bystanders. But to me, tire wear, hot track, hot tires, and trying to set that car on the banking, and if you try to correct it, it goes around just like that. And that's exactly what we saw from Mills.
And you know what, Dawson? Part of me is almost wondering, and you know, we've heard this argument with a couple of drivers, and again, we don't actually know what the setup that Mills is running, but steering ratios and a bunch of other things can come into play sometimes with getting loose, especially on these hot track temps. And I don't know which setting it was, but there's a certain, I think it's a certain steering ratio that some of these drivers run. And it's, the idea is you're doing a lot less wheel movement to get the car to turn. And that's how we see some guys make crazy saves. But at the same time, when you do that, those little inputs have a lot more effect on the car than, say, what they normally would. So I kind of wonder, did he maybe have that setting in play? And do you think maybe that had a little bit of, or played a little bit of a factor in why that car did get so loose so quick as opposed to everybody else around him?
It could have. It didn't look like it to me. It looked more similar to what we saw, again, back in the SummerSlam, where you try to make that quick correction, and you can be running whatever steering setup you want to. And either way, if you try to correct that car back to the left, and when we saw it a few weeks ago, guys on all different kinds of setups were getting out of shape in the corner, just trying to set that car on the banking. And when it doesn't set, you have to try to turn it back to the left, and then it gets out of from underneath you. That back end kicks out. So I don't think that had much to do with it personally. It didn't look like it. It looked like he was already out of shape, already had kind of worn the tires off of it a little bit, and it just got around and got out from underneath him.
And for Christopher McCullough, boy, he had absolutely nowhere to go. We're going to hop on the onboard view here real quick and watch the 94. He's running kind of in the middle here as they start to wreck, and he's just, I mean, at that point, there's not much you can do. You're hoping to either shoot the gap or check up in time, but as he moved to the high side and thought the seas were parting, 12 got shot right back up into the safer barrier, and that one's definitely going to end at least a couple nights, maybe 2 to 5, depending on who's able to make it back out on the racetrack. But with just 15 of 60 laps complete, Dawson, a couple wrecks early, and I mean, we still haven't even gotten to the stage break yet. So I think Baker's mom said it best in the chat. A lot of race left. You got to calm down. I agree, the stage is important. Everybody's racing hard. I know that all these incidents have just been a result of everybody going for it, nobody doing anything wrong. But at the same time, you got to take care of your stuff. You got to be there at the end if you want to have a chance at it.
Yeah, I completely agree. You got to be there at the end of the race. And now we have, 5 or so cars, I think, pretty much, that are going to essentially be out at this point. Well, maybe only 4. It looks like Brian Boussard has kept it going as well. So maybe only 4 cars that are officially going to be out of the race, if you will. Kenny McCullough still sitting on pit road. So is Justin Mills. Chris McCullough has officially called it a night, and Jimmy Emos is many laps down. So we'll wait and see on if these guys respond. But with only 5 laps in the stage, I don't think they're going to calm it down anytime soon, at least not until after the break.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think we're going to see a lot more 2 and 3 wide. The question is, does everybody have the handling after what we just saw with Justin Mills? By the way, Richard Elliott in that 0 car, you might have noticed there on the right side, he scraped up a little bit. And I think that, I'm not sure if that was contact from that last wreck, but normally we would kind of shove that to the side, not really think about it. However, he is the leader. And so you wonder, does that affect that car just enough to allow Matt Lee, Garrett Maines, maybe even Matthew Baker to get a big run on that outside and get clear? It's going to be, again, 5 laps to go on the stage right here. So everybody's going to be pushing for all their worth. Pace car makes a left turn for the 3rd time here tonight. Second caution has been cleaned up, and we are back underway. 16 laps complete. Green flag back in the air at Daytona.
And it's a great start for the outside lane. Matt Lee, Garrett Maines, Matthew Baker all up and on their horses down towards turn number 1. And they're already almost going to get the 0-4 clear. In fact, he may get clear. I don't think he'll drop down, though, because I think that bottom lane is getting affected by the damage on the 60 car. So let's see when they come off, too. If that line is still slow, and it will be. Goodness, the outside's going to have a monster run right here. Matt Lee is clear. Garrett Maines is closing in on being clear. Matthew Baker's trying to come with him, but both these top 2 cars, I think, are going to get it. Garrett Maines hangs the left. Top to bottom goes the champ. Garrett Maines to the bottom, but not a lot of help because Merck's not able to get the 0 all the way out in front, and as such, Lee is not going to allow Maines to clear. It'll be the Matt and Matt show on the outside. Matt Lee and Matt Baker on the outside of the racetrack trying to push back past Garrett Maines as he struggles with no help. Now Merck jumps out and parachutes that bottom line.
Yeah, Merck saw that the 0 was struggling, and man, look how much he fades off the bumper of Garrett Maines once that 60 jumped out. 4 laps to go now on the stage, and everybody's bailing out on this bottom line behind the 0 of Richard Elliott. But now Baker and Lee will jump down in front of the 1 of Garrett Maines, and this should kind of give some life back to this inside. The 05 up top now, going to see what he can do, try to make something happen. That's Joshua McCullough. John Ward, Jeff Merck up top as well. Can they support this lane? As you saw Baker go back to the top to cover a move by Garrett Maines. Now he'll go back to the inside. McCullough's going to follow, but Garrett stays up top through 3 and 4.
Oh, risky, pushing in the middle of the corner. McCullough tries to get hooked on the bumper of Baker right on the edge of the banking, and boy, that is a risky move in this car, but it works out for now. McCullough able to keep that 5 car even with the 1 of Garrett Maines. They'll be even at the line. 3 laps to go, stage number 1. Inside, Baker, McCullough, Lee. Outside, Maines, Merck, and Ward. Further back, Mitch Regattas coming forward. Brock Westerland, Mike Davenport, Chase Mistretta, Mark Math all starting to come forward. Some players that stayed towards the back and saved their equipment coming towards the front with 3 laps to go in stage 1, but it's Maines and Baker, the familiar duo up front.
And still no 3 wide just yet. Everybody content to continue pushing in their respective lane, and that might be part of the hot track temp, but we continue to see a lot of lead changes here so far tonight. Garrett getting a little bit loose right there into 3. That'll allow Baker to get clear. He jumps up. He'll let the 05 Joshua McCullough cool down, and I got to think if you're Matthew Baker now, you're looking for one more big push from Garrett to get back clear to the inside, and if he does, I don't think you'll see that 5 jump back up to the top for the rest of the way. 2 laps to go now here on the stage. Garrett pushing Matthew Baker, Matt Lee pushing Joshua McCullough. Is anybody going to try to make it 3 wide?
I don't know. No signs of it yet because they don't have enough help going up on the outside of the racetrack right now. There's just not enough formation back behind Jeff Merck. Westmoreland takes a look, but his teammate J.R. Miller is not nearly close enough. They're both going to have to fade in line. They're going to have to kind of get a little more organized if they're going to try this, and I'm just not sure there's a place for it. Maines to the bottom. Baker blocked. Maines back to the top side. Baker's trying to throw the block high as well. Maines hooks a left in the middle of the corner, right down from top to bottom on the bumper of McCullough, and a couple cars pitting. Strategic pit stops coming to the stage. White flag.
Bold strategy indeed. We'll see how it pans out. We're also going to see how this battle for the lead's going to play out. White flag in the air for the stage. 1 lap to go. Maines versus Baker, and you said it, Baker, boy, he threw quite a few blocks. Usually we don't see that in this car, but How will Garrett respond? Wreck
Trouble
it
out
out back.
Mitch Regatas and Brock Westermerlin in the outside wall. They're going to collect a couple of others, but the race will stay green, and we will race it out down the super stretch. Oh, man, those two cars way out of shape. I'm surprised no yellow. They're off the pace. Galatti's off the pace. Evan Carlbon and Jared Haynes are off the pace as well. But up front, it may be all champ here at the end of stage number 1. Garrett Maines, no sign of any challenge, and he may get it here off turn number 4.
I think he's got it. Doesn't look like left door block. Maybe he will. Joshua McCullough looks high. Now he looks low, high again. Nowhere to go. Garrett Maines will take stage 1 at Daytona. What a finish to the stage. We had just about everything there in that last lap. We had some strategy calls. We had a 2-car incident that you said it, Dawson. A little surprised it didn't bring out the caution, but it was out of the way. And so I think maybe they knew that we were going to have a caution at the end of the lap. Decided to let these guys race it out. I like the call there. And so Garrett Maines able to capture himself another stage win. I'm not sure if he got any over the last couple weeks, but certainly a good start, picking up right where he left off last season in terms of the stage win category. And Joshua McCullough tried, but Garrett was certainly on top of it right there.
Yeah, not really a massive move there by Josh. It was a little bit of a conservative move. Just try to peek, see if you get something, peek, see if you get something, and then he dove back in line. Nothing really too over the top, and I kind of like that. Take a little bit of a look. If you grab the guy's quarter panel, cool, you can race him to the line. If you get a push, cool, you can race him to the line. If not, hang a left, get back in line, and just see how it goes till the end of the stage. You finish second, you get points anyway, and then you're in a very, very good spot to run for the end of this race, assuming, of course, that group that came down pit road is able to cycle back and get in front of not get in front of the leaders here on pit road.
And unfortunately for the 03 of Ken McCullough Jr., you saw he lost another lap right as they were coming to the checkered flag for the stage. But would expect a lot of pit stops right here as they catch the pace car down the super stretch, and everybody going to top off on fuel. Most likely take 4 tires. Normally that would not be a concern or something we'd talk about, but with the handling issues we've seen in this hot track temp, I would not be surprised if everybody sits in the pit stall a bit long just to make sure that they've got grip when they need it later on in this race. 22 laps officially complete. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll go side by side so you don't miss a thing, and we'll be back for the restart for the final stage here at Daytona.
I played a couple of simulators, and this was like very responsive, especially the hydraulics and stuff, the motion and stuff was really, really on point.
But you feel like you really drive, it feels real.
It adds so much to the experience. It's just really, really cool.
It was pretty awesome.
Green flag is in the air. We are racing.
Three by three.
Almost no trouble. Around goes Alex Hill. On into the outside wall goes Hill. They're wrecking big time out back. We're not going to throw a caution. Finish. Who gets it in the line? Cody Nagels wins it in Talladega.
Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway, the site tonight for Tuesday Night Thunder, race 3 of season 5. Getting ready to go back green here for the final stage. You see the 3 of Ken McCullough Jr. getting the wave around. That'll get him at least one of his laps back. Not sure if he was 1 or 2 down. But as we do get ready to go back green, you saw the entire field bring it down on a pit stop. And when they all cycled out, it's John Ward being scored as your leader. He's up 17 positions from where he started this race at. Mike Davenport second, Garrett Maines in third, Matthew Baker fourth, and Matt Lee for Nightmare eSports currently rounding out your top 5 here tonight. All right, Dawson, well, the question now is the stage is over. We've already seen a couple wrecks, had a couple different cautions. Do they calm it down now, knowing that we've still got 35, 36 laps to go when we take the green?
Well, I certainly hope they do, much as the field will do after each stage break this weekend. Obviously, when NASCAR's top 2 series head to Daytona International Speedway, I imagine they will calm down after the stage break. These guys, these are the guys that race every single night for the most part. They know better than to try to race that ante for 60 laps, so I imagine they'll calm it down. I hope they do, because we may not have any cars left at the end if they keep racing like they did in stage number 1. And that would certainly be a sight to see for this series if that was the case. But with a hot track like this, they need to tone it down just a little bit if they're all going to make it to the finish.
I would completely agree. And then going back here to see if we could find a quick replay of that last lap incident before they go back green. We'll try to back this up for you. Just briefly look at it. One of the cars involved, it looked like, was the 9 of Mitch Regattas. And then I couldn't tell who else was involved at the time. It was Brock Westmoreland. And so watch as they worked into turn 1 right here. You see the 9 up top just gets loose, gets into Davenport, and as he goes back up, Brock Westmoreland just had absolutely nowhere to go. And so that incident, again, didn't bring out the caution, but did happen on the last lap of the stage. All right, here we go. Pace car will head back down to the pits. It'll be 25 laps complete. Field back in the hands of John Ward and Mike Davenport. And back into the Geico restart zone they go. Green flag back in the air. The final stage is underway, and it's a great restart from the Hyper Motorsports captain, John Ward. He'll get clear, and he's going to pull Garrett clear as well. The one car quickly looking up top. John Ward's going to try to block. What will the one do? He holds him in the middle. Which lane will he pick as they get down into turn number 1? They still sit in the middle here as they climb the banking, but it looks like John Ward's going to be able to drag that one down low. But I'm telling you, Garrett, he is going to be looking for a move. Just wait till there's some momentum. Here comes Matt Lee along with the 2 off of turn 2. Is that the momentum Garrett's going to need to jump up?
It is. Now the question was going to be, will Ward turn right and throw the block? He will not. Smartly stays down on the bumper of Davenport. Basson's going to go to the back as soon as we go back green. He's going back to the back of the field. Probably a smart move. Get back a little closer to where these guys are not going to race quite as hard. 2x2 up front. Ward on the bottom. Maines on the top side. Ward got some nice help there from a pair of PGR teammates on the bottom side. Davenport, Miller up here for the first time tonight. Mark Math, a brand new look aboard Mark Math's machine tonight as well. The Mobile 1 Supra back 4th on the inside. Jonathan Herbert as well as back up front for Hyper Motorsports, as well as Matthew Baker in behind Matt Lee. A trio of powerhouses up top. It's Ward, Davenport, Miller on the bottom.
And I do want to make a quick note about that 87 of Jonathan Herbert. You got to love to see it, right? Getting signed with Hyper Motorsports, all the work he's been putting in as of recent. And since he hopped into the Super Speedway money racing side of things, he has certainly learned quickly. Wouldn't be calling him a rookie anymore, not after some of the runs he's put together. And you start to feel like he's getting to that point where it's just a matter of time before he grabs that first win. He's been getting, again, better and better. The runs, they're starting to come together. He's cashed a few times, and boy, if he could find victory lane here tonight, that would be one happy man. Right now, he's got himself in a very good position to try to make that happen as he still runs inside the top 5. But again, really good to see that 87 get signed with one of the big teams here in the scene of money racing.
Yeah, it's always a cool moment to see a driver get signed for a team. We've seen that a few times over the past couple of months, really, as Jared Haynes joins One Stop Motorsports. One Stop Motorsports comes back with Evan Carlbon, Landon Velicki, and Jared Haynes. A nice operation down there as all 3 of those drivers find a home with that team. That's a great operation. Obviously, we've seen drivers join Hyper Motorsports, McCullough Motorsports, Nightmare eSports. Every team, it seems like, is picking up new talent by today. The Jack Shack arrives on the scene as well. The team situation, the team landscape in money racing is at an all-time best. Right now, everybody is at their best, and they're all signing good talent, it seems like, every single day.
Yeah, and whether these drivers know it or not. Oh, big wreck,
Jonathan
huge
Herbert,
hit.
right as we talked about it, it's Jonathan Herbert for Hyper. He's head on into the outside wall. And, man, right after you got done talking about him, what a tough break for the 87.
And I think that might have been the commentator's curse, as Jeff Merck and multiple others are involved. Jonathan Herbert is destroyed, though, the 87 car. This will be a day-ender for him. So any chance of finding victory lane here tonight has unfortunately come to an abrupt halt here on lap 28 after a huge hit into the outside wall. You heard our reactions both kind of at the same time. We saw that hit. That was brutal for the 87. And man, I don't know where it went wrong to take a hit that big at this point in the race after, well, realistically, we thought things were going to calm down, but fortunately, that was not the case. So here we go. Jeff Merck was just getting ready to note that he was going 3 wide on the outside. And as they're working through the tri-oval here, let's see what happens. Looks like J.R. Miller works a little bit up off the yellow, and I think that maybe Herbert kind of reacts to that as he works up the racetrack a little bit. And it almost doesn't look to me like they ever actually touch. They get close, but I don't know if they ever really make contact. Looks like a bit of net code there on the right rear for the 87, and then man, that's a huge hit into the safer barrier. That car, all 4 tires up off the ground. Jeff Merck, huge hit for him as well. The 99 got some damage. And then there you see Joey Galati and Joe Herta. Nowhere to go. Dylan Jones has to dodge to the inside of the racetrack, as did the 7 of Jared Haynes. And then you see the hood flying into the virtual grandstands. Hopefully all the virtual fans are okay. But man, oh man, Jonathan Herbert, that's a tough break here with not even half of the laps complete here tonight.
Yeah, right after we got done talking about him too. And I think kind of what happened there when I went back and looked at it is it's almost like when J.R. Miller kind of washes up just a little bit. It's like he spooked the 87. It's like he scared him a little bit. He probably, is looking over to his left. Miller's coming up and up and up and up, and Herbert's like, okay, I got to move. I got to react. And as he reacts, unfortunately, it kind of, maybe it's a mix of the tires and the hot track or, whatever it may be, kind of washes a little bit too far up, and then Jeff Merck just happens to be there. And again, not really any contact. It's so unfortunate when you have that netcode happen, because normally, again, in a real race, they don't hit. They probably keep racing, but unfortunately, iRacing registers contact, and it sends the 87 for a slide and a big hit in the outside wall. I mean, that's one of the bigger hits we've seen in a while. And his night's going to be over. There's a couple other guys took big hits in that as well. Galati got into that one pretty well, and a couple of other cars as well. Brock Westmoreland also involved. So some cars on pit road here with some big damage at the middle portions of this race.
Indeed, as we take a couple more views of that one here, I do want to get a look from TV3 cam here. Actually, I'll take the back. We're going to go to TV2 and watch. You said it, Dawson. Just, I think it was the reaction that was kind of sparked by the move from the 78, just slightly drifting up the racetrack. And we talked about, and maybe if we're at Talladega, that's also not an issue because it's a bit wider. But as narrow as it is here at Daytona, that could be part of the reason that 87 did react. And boy, that damage on the 199 certainly a lot worse than I initially thought it was off of first look. So Mark Math, he's going to be pretty torn up, may not be able to continue either. And for Brock Westmoreland, a tough night, just continues to get tougher. He was involved in that last incident coming to the stage break and now finds himself involved in this as well, as we see even more cars in the pits now, Dawson. And I'm sitting here looking at the scoring tower, and the list of drivers on track and on the lead lap continues to get smaller and smaller. We'll see how things shape up, but right now I'm looking at 16 or 17 from the 27 that we initially started with. Up front, though, Garrett Maines being scored as your leader as we've officially made it halfway with 30 of 60 laps complete. Matthew Baker in second, John Ward in third. Then you've got Matt Lee in fourth with J.R. Miller rounding out your top 5.
Yeah, again, on the pace we're going, I mean, we talked about it right before we went back green. At the pace we were going in stage 1, we weren't going to have any cars left to contest the end of this race. Well, we've gone from 27 on the grid at the start of the night to about, make it about 17 without any damage. The others from Jeff Merck on back have some damage, and several of the cars that are up here from 1st to 16th also have damage. Joey Galati was involved in that wreck just now. Jared Haynes has been involved in a couple tonight, so has Brian Boussard. So a couple of the cars, even without in quotes, damage, are also here at the front. Mark Math as well. He has a ton of damage, but runs P8 right now. So at this point, I mean, we're going to run out of cars. We're all going to be on the haulers before we get to lap 60.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way at the rate we're going. But while we have a chance, let's pull in one of the veterans of this series and of money racing in general and see what he thinks about what we've seen so far here tonight. Mr. Matthew Baker, let's see if we can get him up here real quick. Hey, Baker, this is Austin and Dawson up in the booth. You got a copy?
What's up, man?
Man, we have seen quite a bit of things happen here tonight. A lot of wrecking, though, especially early on in each of these stages. I mean, from your point of view out there, is there kind of a root cause to all the wrecking that we're seeing?
I mean, the track temp's at 140 right now. It's set to 9 p.m., but I mean, the sun should be down. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's the static weather, but this car is a handful when you get into clean air, and when you're second in line, it's really tight entrance, and then it's loose off. So center of the corner, it's almost undrivable once you get about 2 or 3 laps into these tires. It's a lot of fun though. I'm having a ton of fun. I feel bad for Merck there, just wrong place, wrong time, rolling on the top per usual and gets crashed out. So hopefully he can get his damage repaired. Hopefully we get a couple more cautions behind us to get him back up here.
Well, we appreciate some of the insight. So far, you got a good run going. You're already locked in. See if you can go get a second win on the season here tonight. Appreciate you talking to us.
Thanks, man.
All right, and that was Matthew Baker. And I'll tell you what, Dawson, if he's saying that it's pretty much undrivable, you can just about imagine how it is for the rest of the field.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's kind of what we saw earlier in the race. When Baker kind of got out of shape a little bit, he got hit by Garrett, and then when he went to save it, the car got out of shape. That should tell you everything you need to know about how hard this car is to drive tonight. Every single car is having problems. Everybody is experiencing that same sensation of, okay, it's really loose in clean air, but then when I'm the second car in line, he said borderline undrivable. I've never heard anybody on this type of racetrack call a car borderline undrivable.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect that. Everybody thinks it's, full throttle all the way through and just hold the wheel left, and I mean that's the idea, but when you get these hot track temps, it's not that simple. Green flag is back in the air. 32 of 60 laps complete as Garrett Maines, Matthew Baker get off through the gears. The 1 gets a little bit of a better restart than the 5, but it looks like that outside's going to get lined up a little bit quicker. Some of the VAR entries still trying to stay up here at the front, most notably Richard Elliott, as John Ward is able to push Garrett out to the lead on the inside. Garrett's going to jump right up to the top of the racetrack, and that'll now put the 78 of JR Miller to the lead pusher position. And, I mean, you look at the 199 of Mark Mathieu, Dawson, the front end of that race car still looks to be pretty beat up. I'm surprised to see him stay out and kind of running in the pack with this much damage. We'll see how long this works for the 199.
Well, so far, I mean, it's working pretty okay. He seems to be maybe not quite 100% up to speed, but he's at least competitive enough to stay in the draft. And Chase Mistretta is playing a big part in that. He's staying right on the backbone for the 199. No real reason for Chase to go anywhere right now, so why not help somebody out? You're still in the lead pack and keep that 199 up here. So far, he's not going to have race-winning speed, but for now, he's at least competitive enough to run just outside the top 5 and hanging around here at the front of the field. Lap 33, a pit stop looms, but it's a while, and with these tires, as hard as these guys are racing, I don't know, making it to the pit stop seems less and less likely each time we go into the yellow flag.
Yeah, you're right about that. And with this 199, I think the only thing that's keeping him in the draft right now is what you said, Chase Mistretta. I think if he loses any drafting help from behind, he's going to fade. But look at this. Starts to show some resurgences. He'll get a little bit of headway back up to JR Miller, but I mean, the Zero's kind of in the same boat. Neither of these cars have been able to get to their respective lane, and as a result, it's kind of been a stalemate up front between Garrett Maines and, well, what was Matthew Baker, but it's now John Ward in the 92. And the other thing I'm sitting here watching and kind of wondering is, with how hot this track temp is, does that make it that much tougher to try to control these lanes?
100%, because that move in this car is already, as it is, a pretty extreme movement of the wheel. You have to really muscle this car around when you're trying to especially go bottom to top. Top to bottom's a little bit easier, but bottom to top is just an unorthodox movement, especially in the middle of the corner. So you kind of have to muscle it a little bit to try to get it to move. And when you do that on a hot track, it kind of results in a little bit of a tail whip, a spin. It can kick that back end out as you try to get up and then correct to stay in line. It can kick those rear tires out from under you really easily on a hot track right now. So these guys are doing it so far, but notice it's not quite as extreme as it usually is in terms of controlling, going back and forth. These guys are very calculated with those moves, at least the guys up front right now.
Indeed, they are. 35 of 60 laps now complete. By the way, we are expecting at least one more pit stop if this thing were to go green, but as you said, Dawson, it seems more and more likely with each caution that that's not going to be the case. So we'll see if we're able to make it to that green flag stop and maybe space things out a bit, see if that changes the pace of this race. But Garrett continues to look relatively comfortable up front as we've got one jumping on the apron further back. That's Jared Haynes in the 7. Westmoreland will drop low, just below Joey Galati, and he'll try to take that spot. Dylan Basin still up here as he sits just behind Dylan Jones. And Ward and Miller, I mean, this is really interesting, Dawson. I don't know if this is a product of everybody trying to be more conservative in terms of the racing, or if they're just all getting this much more concerned about handling, but we're seeing a lot of spacing being given here. It seems like they kind of tighten up down the front stretch into 1, but then by the time they're into 3 and 4, oh, big hit out back. Another huge wreck here, and this one's going to collect multiple more again. The 27's involved. Mark Matthews said he was also in it. That's Brian Bassard in the 27. And so the wrecking continues, and this will put us even closer to a possibility now of not having a final pit stop as we just hit 25 laps to go. And this is going to end, I think, a couple more nights, Dawson.
Yeah, I think so. I'm looking back at it right now, and I'll tell you, I think, and I'm looking back waiting for, oh, wow, Mark Math. He and Mike Davenport both extremely loose. Math gets loose on the apron in the trial, goes to the apron. As he clips the apron, it shoots him back to the right and right across the nose of Joey Galati. And man, that is a monster hit to the outside wall. Up and in the air goes the Mark Math machine. Oh, nowhere to go for Vondell. Oh my goodness, Vondell almost gets upside down. He hits him so hard. Landon Veliky has to scramble. Brian Boussard nowhere to go. Josh McCullough nowhere to go. He's going to get a piece of this as well. Another multi-car incident. That's the third or fourth one tonight. It's collected 5 or more cars, and this time, that's at least 3 nights that I see they're going to be over as a result of this wreck. Mark Math, Brian Boussard, Joey Galati, I believe their nights are done.
And it did look like there was a little bit of net code involved in that wreck as well, but you said it. 2 drivers getting, well, one getting loose in the trial, the other one bumping off the apron. And, you know, it's the trial, similar idea to the turns. The car kind of unloads a little bit as you're getting into the trial. That spot that he got loose at seems a little interesting, but, I mean, with what we've seen in turns here tonight, can't necessarily say I'm too surprised. And that is a huge hit for Mark Math. That car does almost flip. And then you said Mark Vondell, when he came along, almost got upside down. We saw that as he kind of ramped off the wheel, the front left wheel there of Joey Galati. And then once the 199 gets T-boned by Boussard, he almost gets upside down again. So I think this one's going to end pretty much the night of just about every single driver involved in that, as they all took massive hits. But it just continues to kind of be the theme of this race, is a lot of big wrecks. And if I'm seeing that as a driver, Dawson, I don't really know what to think. I mean, if I'm up front, I'm thinking I want to stay there. But if I'm at the back, I don't know at this point of, do you try to go to the front? You know, I'd be worried I'd get in a wreck. But at the same time, I don't know if I want to stay in the back, because it might be too hard to get to the front at the end of this.
I'm not even sure anymore, because it doesn't even seem like the back is safe anymore. That wreck took place back around the 15th position, and I mean, that's not normally where you expect a multi-car accident to start, but that one does. So I don't know, between, you know, not having the time to get up front with the tires how they are, and with the guys racing up front how they are, and, you know, also the wreck starting back there on 15th as well. There's really no place on this racetrack that's safe at this point in the race, and there's still 23 laps to go, and we're down to cars without damage, we're probably down to about, I don't know, 12, 13 at this point. Everybody else, I mean, Jared Haynes, Chef Merck, Landon Veliky, Joe Huerta, I mean, all these cars have been in wrecks, and they're running 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th on the racetrack. So, I mean, we're down to 11 cars, I think. No, not even. I think 10 cars without damage here at the front of the field. Back to Richard Ellie, and everybody else at some point has been involved in a wreck tonight.
Definitely one of those nights where it pays to have a clean race car. By the end of this one, it'll be, looks like probably 21 laps to go when we take the green flag again. So we're going to take another quick break, go side by side so you won't miss a thing, and we'll be right back at the World Center of Racing.
I played a couple of simulators, and this was like very responsive, especially the hydraulics and stuff, the motion and stuff was really, really on point.
Make you feel like you're really driving. It feels real.
It adds so much to the experience. It's just really, really cool.
It was pretty awesome.
lights in the air. We are racing.
3x3.
Almost no trouble. Around goes Alex Hill. On into the outside wall goes Hill. They're wrecking big time out back. We're not going to throw a caution. To the finish. Who gets it at the line? Cody Nagels wins it in Talladega.
Welcome back to the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway. Getting ready to go back green. Going to be 21 laps to go for Garrett Maines and Matthew Baker as one of those two drivers tries to find themselves in victory lane here tonight. They've been really good so far. We'll see if they can keep it up. Green flag back in the air. It's a good restart for Garrett Maines. Looks like John Ward, though, is trying to push Matthew Baker. Will that one car have enough momentum to get clear up before they get to turn one? No, he will not. They'll stay side by side as they climb the banking through 1 and 2. Ward's needing to get some help from out back, but he just doesn't have it. And, you know, interestingly enough, Dawson, I talked briefly during that last one about the gaps that we were seeing be created. You know, you wonder, I thought the general idea was the hotter the track temp, the bigger the runs, and, you know, the easier you could pull up to the car in front of you, but it almost doesn't seem like the case here tonight.
Well, again, that also could be factored into a lot of the cars in the field tonight have damage, so that may not help some of these guys' cases. Obviously, Westmoreland's been in a wreck tonight. Davenport's been in a wreck tonight. Again, going back a little further, Jared Haynes, Landon Velicki, Evan Carlbon, Jeff Merck, Dylan Basson, Kenny McCullough, Josh McCullough. You know, all these cars have been in wrecks tonight, so that may be why they can't pull up. But, you know, up front maybe a little bit. But for the most part, we've seen guys able to pull right to the back bumper as long as your car is decently clean. So for guys that have been in wrecks, I get it. For guys that have not been in wrecks, it hasn't been a huge deal. Maybe a little bit less than usual. But now notably, if you heard a couple of those names I said, Kenny McCullough is back on the lead lap. He was destroyed, damaged about 20 laps ago. Well, he's back on the lead lap, and his car is once again clean. The 3 car may be back in this one after all.
Yeah, I don't want to say that's the beauty of getting damaged, but I mean, if you got to get it early, right? So you have plenty of time to fix it and get things, you know, get yourself back on the lead lap as Ken McCullough Jr. has done. So nicely done on that for Ken, and who knows, he could still have a fighting chance for this thing even after what we thought was potentially day-ending damage. But up front, I mean, you can see how much this pack has thinned from what it was earlier. We've currently only got 17 cars on the lead lap, and looks like about 10 of them are up here actually getting after it and still racing, and the rest of them kind of playing it conservative right now, waiting to see if we're going to wreck any more before we get to probably about 5 laps to go or so. And I think at that point is when you'll see everybody get back on the wheel and try to get aggressive. But still, 2x2 up front. Baker will get clear as he'll drop to the lead in front of Garrett Maines. That opens the door now to John Ward, and guess who? Dylan Jones, Mr. Where Did He Come From? He loves starting these races towards the back, but you better believe he's going to find his way to the front by the time it's all said and done. He's up 12 positions from where he started this race at. And if you look, if there's ever a guy, Dawson, to talk about maybe not the best qualifier, but definitely one of the top racers in the field, it's got to be Dylan Jones.
Oh, 100%. He's kind of like a businessman that kicks his feet up on his desk for the first 2/3 and then closes the deal at the last third. It's kind of how it feels with Dylan Jones. He qualifies towards the middle of the pack, kind of just hangs around. He doesn't necessarily run in, 25th, 30th, 35th, 40th in these big races. He kind of runs 20th, 18th, 16th, and then with about 20 laps to go, like he's done tonight, he slowly, either by pit strategy or otherwise, just slowly climbs his way forward. You see him go from 16th to 13th to 10th, now to 6th on the outside, 3rd in line up on that top lane, and all of a sudden he's in contention. And you said it best, Mr. Where Did He Come From again? He's here to close the deal with 18 to go now. Lead pusher on the outside. J.R. Miller, is he out of shape? Chase Mastretta is as well. The tires, man, they are fading and fading fast. You heard Baker say 2 to 3 laps and the car becomes undrivable. Well, they got a lot more than that to go. Still 17 to go. And at the rate we're at in this race, they're not taking tires on that last pit stop. That's going to be a treacherous point of the race for these drivers.
If we get to that last pit stop.
Exactly.
But I'm watching another driver here to keep my eye on, Dawson, and that is Chase Mastretta right now in the 8. He's been doing a great job so far here tonight, and Mastretta is another driver who's due for a win anytime now. I believe he has been running with Nightmare as of recent. He's got a good-looking paint scheme here tonight. Likes to run that Dale Jr. Budweiser number 8 car, and so far, so good here tonight. He hasn't got damage yet, but I don't want to give him the broadcaster's curse, so we'll move on from that as we turn our attention back to the front. Baker's still leading. And the other thing now we got to think about, Dawson, is at what point, I think it's probably sometime after that final pit stop, do you kind of have to start maybe getting a little bit more risky with the pushes, despite the fact that it's been tough enough to handle the cars without pushing here tonight?
Yeah, it's basically right after the last pit stop. I mean, at that point, we're going to be well inside the range to race. I mean, we may be closing inside of 10 to go when that last pit stop is made, and if that's the case, you got to come out and race immediately. You got to be right into full go mode, no matter how undrivable, no matter how hard it is. You have to just risk it. You have to throw it all on the table and say, you know what, if the car gets out of shape, it is what it is, but I got to try to go win the race. I got to try to get myself forward, get myself in a good position, and well, let the cards fall as they may. So we'll see. John Ward, Hyper Motorsports captain, going to take the lead on the outside. Man, some of these guys, especially the ones on the bottom, they are really starting to struggle with the tires and with the tire wear and with the handling of their race cars. Back around Miller, back around Mistretta, a couple of others as well. Man, Chase Mistretta, he's starting to bobble really badly here on the bottom of the racetrack.
Well, while you were watching Mistretta, I was watching Maines push Baker through the corner, and man, I thought for sure we were getting ready to see the 5 get turned through the corner, but you know, as much talent and chemistry as these two have, we certainly know that it is possible to push a guy through the corner as long as you are perfectly centered. But man, Dawson, it's really stressing me out. That one seems like he's getting a little bit offset. I'm not sure if he's getting a little bit frustrated with Baker and just trying to encourage him to move up the racetrack, or if there's something else going on. But this duo here, they're fast, and I know they're trying to work things out so that they can push together at the end, but man, it just makes me so nervous with all the issues that we've seen so far here tonight.
Well, not to mention the patented left rear bumper hook that we see on this car all the time. You do not have to be offset very far. I mean, about a foot is what we've seen so far in this car, that you get off to the guy's left, you can hook him around and spin him, and I mean, if it happens in the middle of the corner, it's hard to miss for anybody behind that incident. So we'll see if he tries it again. Garrett Maines, again, very seasoned. He knows what he can and can't do, but it's more a car issue than it is a driver issue when it comes to that bumper hook. You see Maines trying to get off to the right of Matthew Baker a little bit, try to push off about a foot to the right of his back bumper. So we'll see if that changes anything. So far, so good for Garrett Maines. 13 to go, and a couple drivers again joining the outside, Davenport and Westmoreland. It's only 4 cars up top, though. Everybody else seems to be pretty content to try to make it to this last pit stop.
And, you know, for Garrett Maines' credit here, I think part of the reason that he's kind of pushing that envelope right now is it doesn't look like he's getting a lot of help here from the 78 of J.R. Miller, and we know that when you don't have help from that third car, you're kind of the only thing that's keeping that lane alive, right? You've got to do a little bit more pushing, and sometimes that might mean pushing in the corner where you normally wouldn't have to. So that third car in line plays just as important of a role as the lead pusher does. And now J.R. Miller, hold on to it! Baker, what a save! J.R.'s not going to hold on to it here.
Out back.
Mistretta, does he hold on to it? Oh my goodness, what a save!
JR is going to hold on to it.
Wow, we saw one lose a bumper cover. I don't know if that was JR or Chase Mistretta. It looks like it was JR Miller that lost the bumper cover. He held on to that race car, but man, what a save from Matthew Baker and JR Miller.
My goodness. When they've been struggling so bad, they're spinning right when the tires start to give way. Now with 10 laps to go, or 12 laps to go, 2 guys get out of shape and end up saving the race cars when the tires get out from under them. So another big twist now. The big difference here, that group with Chase Mistretta, they are bleeding time and bleeding it in a hurry, and they may have very well lost the draft. That could have completely changed the complexion of the ending of this race.
Well, Dawson, we're looking back at this, and I got to be honest, I think Baker's already made the save of the season with that one right there. This whole incident starts as John Ward gets down the racetrack and into the door of J.R. Miller. That sends him up the track into Baker, and oh my goodness, the amount of wheel inputs that he had to put in here through pretty much the entirety of 3 and 4. I mean, he was laying down his own tire tracks, and he still managed to hold on to this race car. We're going to have to go back and take a couple more looks at this, because not only Baker, but also Miller, he had a phenomenal save, but this is the onboard view for Matthew Baker. Look at this. Oh my goodness. I mean, how do you save a race car that's that out of control?
I have no idea. He's had a couple of those now over the past 2-3 seasons of this series that have just, you go back and watch and you have no idea how he hangs on the race car, let alone he hung on the race car and kept a lead. He's still on the point after doing all that in turn 3. He kept a lead, and now he's leading the race with 10 laps to go. So not only was he able to pull the car out of a spin, he was also able to maintain his lead. Now, notably, that second group I said would lose the draft. They did not. Mastretta, Lee, Richard Elliott, Dylan Basson, and then by extension, Westmoreland, Miller, Merck, and others are going to maintain the lead draft. But for now, about a 1.5 second lead for the leaders up here with 10 laps to go.
And we're taking one more view of that. I've got to see the save here from J.R. Miller. I mean, he got on the flat. Chase Mastretta, you got to give a hats off to him, too. He had a heck of a save and checking up to allow J.R. Miller to save it, along with Matt Lee and Richard Elliott, and then all these guys to get reorganized here to at least try to give themselves a chance. But back up front we go, and there it is. Matthew Baker, John Ward, Dylan Jones, Garrett Rains, and Mike Davenport. All the cars currently in this lead group, but Mastretta and company, they have caught on, and they will be extending here soon. Matt Lee, Richard Elliott, and the two of Dylan Basin, all looking to make what was a 5-car pack, now a 9-car lead pack, and then Brock Westermelin leading this third group. He's got a push from Jeff Merck, Jared Haynes, the 71, and the 62. I think that's Landon Velicky, and then Evan Carlbon, the 72. It's, man, they almost just wrecked themselves, so I know we got a lot of spread throughout the field now, Dawson, but I don't know if I would say that this thing's necessarily guaranteed to go green the rest of the way.
I'm not sure, but that margin for error was already small with that third group, and now it is gone. Westmoreland, Haynes, Velicky, Merck, Carlbon, and others will lose the lead draft here. That second group makes its way into the first, and now a 1.75 second gap. They have to get lined up. Well, but right as I say that, they're going to pit. They're going to fan 5, 6, almost 7 wide into the pit lane here. Dylan Basin, are you kidding me with that entry? Unreal if he wasn't speeding.
Yeah, he certainly got his money's worth right there. I mean, if he was going to get a speeding ticket, he certainly did it the right way, but I think he was able to get it slowed down just enough. That was a phenomenal pit stop from Dylan Basin. As long as he didn't speed, you saw the lockup. That always gets you a little nervous.
Oh, Garrett Main slides through his box.
Oh, that's going to be a mistake here. Let's see how bad of a mistake it was. I think he should still be able to get out. Yes, he will, but he is going to lose some spots here. Dylan Basin, that tells you all you need to know. Look at the gap he made on these guys by getting out that early. Now, that gap's not going to matter much here because of the draft, but that shows you just how good of a pit stop he had. And guess what it did do? It got that 2-car out in front with just 8 laps to go, so still a couple pit stops to be made. Actually, looks like just one, and that's Jeff Merck, as everybody else also made their stop and are working their way back out. Uh-oh, J.R. Miller with some trouble here. What happened to the 78? He's loose. Another one loose just behind him. I believe that's Jimmy Emos in the 98 in the grass off of 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Some problems for them. Some problems for Chase Mastretta as well in the 8-car. He had some issues off the pit lane behind J.R. Miller. He is going to lose the draft, but notably, Jared Haynes, Landon Velicky, and Brock Westmoreland, hats off to these 3 cars, assuming they can hold on to the back of Garrett Maines. I believe, well, maybe not Jared Haynes. He has lost these guys already, but Westmoreland and Velicky may just have kept their races alive with an incredible effort on pit road. They got on and off so fast, and they caught these guys.
And I'm watching back here. Jimmy Emos is still struggling here. I'm not sure what the deal is. The 98, he's still in the grass here in turn 3. Got to be careful. Could end up bringing out a caution. But meanwhile, up front, 3 cars in the lead pack. Dylan Basin, John Ward, Matt Lee, and then here comes a couple of those other groups. I think everybody's going to merge back together here with about 5 or 6 laps to go. And the race is going to be on from there. And Dawson, I just don't see any way that this thing finishes under green. Or maybe I'll say without a wreck, with how out of control everybody had already been. And nobody took tires on that pit stop. And now, not only do you have more worn tires, but it's time to go racing, and it's getting ready to get chaotic.
Yeah, absolutely, because now these groups have caught each other. And Westmoreland and Velicky, mad props to those 2 cars. They saved their race. Oh, my goodness. Matthew Baker hung her right out of line, and that car drifted all the way through the trial. Oh, man, Dylan Jones, that's cold-blooded. Drops back in line. They're going to give him a lifeline, I think, and that they're going to drop to the bottom, and Maines will pick up the 5. That was almost a race ender for Matthew Baker. If he gets to the back of this pack, I'm not sure he recovers. Oh, my goodness, Evan Carlbon right in front of the leaders has to hang a left off the speedway. What in the world happened there?
Not sure, but they were able to all keep it together through that close call. The 04 Matt Lee gets clear with the push from Matthew Baker. He drops back down in front of John Ward, and they are back to 2 by 2, about 5 or 6 rows deep. Matthew Baker still working the high side as they come off for the banking in turn number 4. Lee still on the inside getting pushed by John Ward. We keep talking about tire wear, but with this hot track temp, the other thing you got to watch now, if you're Garrett Maines or John Ward, is those temps. If you feel like you're getting ready to overheat, you either got to make the decision to try to back off and save so that you can push on that last lap, or you got to commit and try to get your guy clear so that you can cool off.
That's what John Ward does right there. Incredible work by the 92 to get himself a moment of fresh air. Now, the problem is by the time Lee drops back down, if he's able to, actually, John Ward making enough of a push here from Jones and Basson on the bottom to get clear himself, but it may not matter. Wow. Incredible work there, although Jones has to now back off. I don't know if it's going to be awfully close for John Ward here, and you can't take that. It was too close on the bumper of Matt Lee, but as I was saying, now Ward able to get a free moment. Now he's going to need one more of these, I think, to be able to push all the way home, but if he has it his way, he'd rather stay right here on the leader on the bottom with 4 laps to go. The lap car coming up, Jimmy Emos will go to the outside safer barrier. 4 laps to go from the World Center Racing. Back down comes Matt Lee to the graces of John Ward.
And Jimmy Emos, pretty hard contact into the outside wall as the leaders went by, but he's able to keep it up there. So we keep it green as now Ward tried to make the move up top. Oh, he's going to get split. Oh, he gets himself split. Oh, him and Lee get together. They're going to wreck. Lee and Baker get hooked together. Lee goes into the outside safer barrier down the super stretch. He'll come sliding to a stop just below the apron as they go into turn number 3. Caution's out, and ooh, boy, that was almost oh my goodness, they are still almost wrecking as he tries to get back rolling, and the rest of the field's going to be able to go by. Wow, that was a close call. Couldn't tell if that was Richard Elliott or somebody else. I don't think it was Elliott, but oh my goodness, Dawson. Now we're going to head to overtime, and I don't know what just transpired right there between Lee and Baker, but whatever the case was, there was some sort of disagreement on the backstretch that just never got sorted out here. As I thought Ward was going to be going to the back, and then almost looked like somebody dropped in behind him, and then Lee became the odd man out. Let's see here. So as they exit off of turn number 2, Ward's kind of trying to make the decision here. He's trying to get up, but he sees Lee go up, so now he tries to go back down the racetrack, and now he gets himself stuck in the middle. Jones jumps low. He's got nowhere to go, so he's got to stay in the middle. He knows that, but then watch what happens here. Baker's going to try to take Matt Lee 4 wide, and Garrett Main says, yeah, no thanks. I'll go down to the middle. But John Ward and Matt Lee, I don't know if that's, again, kind of a general reaction to... You know what I think it is, Dawson, is I almost think that maybe Ward wasn't expecting Baker to go 4 wide and thought that Lee was going to maybe drift up just a little bit and he was going to do the same, but the 04 had to hold his line by Baker going 4 wide, and as a result, the 92, the 04 get together. That sends the 04 into the 5, and I don't think it's horrible damage for Matt Lee, but it's certainly a loss of track position, and he did take a couple of licks there on the front and the rear.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I saw there, what I thought it was, is Matt Lee, obviously one of the more seasoned drivers. He sees this move coming. He knows John Ward, when he gets clear of Baker, he's going to jump out of line. And so he anticipates it, does a really good job, jumps out there right as Ward starts to move. Now the problem is John Ward thinks, okay, well, I'm just going to drop back to the bottom. I'm going to drop out of line. I'm going to hang a left and go back on Dylan Jones's bumper, and I'm going to get clear of him again. Well, unfortunately, Dylan Jones had so much of a push from out back that wasn't going to work. Jones was already there, and then Ward is stuck. At that point, he's stuck in the middle. When Lee gets to his outside again, Ward is then stuck. He's split, and Ward tries to come back up, and it's just not there. They get 4 wide and kind of pinball off of each other, and then it's Baker and Lee, the unfortunate bystanders there, as they get collected and now have some damage. And I can't imagine either car is going to be too happy with the 92, because Lee anticipated the move. John Ward, instead of saying, well, I'll just push him for a minute and get out of line, instead tries to get a split going, and unfortunately for him, it does not work.
No, it doesn't, and boy, we saw that close call after Matt Lee had already came to a halt for a couple of seconds between him and Evan Carlbon, and I mean, in Evan's case, he was going to go to the high side, and then as Lee started to get back rolling, he thought that 04 was coming up, so he had to jerk the wheel left, and that was almost going to be Matt Lee's day completely ended if he would have hit him. I mean, he was absolutely flying, and that's one of those things where sometimes it's just better to slow down because you don't know what a driver's going to do that's already wrecked, but close call avoided there as Matt Lee, you see, still sitting in the pits, as is J.R. Miller in the 7-8. Meanwhile, back up front we go. Dylan Jones being scored as your leader, John Ward in 2nd. Then you've got Dylan Basin in 3rd with Garrett Mains at 4th, and Mike Davenport, Little Guy Series champion from just a couple seasons ago, currently rounding out your top 5 with what's going to be overtime attempt number 1 here at Daytona.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen for the first 57 laps of this race, or over 59 laps of this race now, we've seen these guys struggle all night with handling. Now you're on old tires, you're off a green flag pit stop, and now it's go mode. I mean, how much handling do you have left? How much struggle do you have on this race start, and how much is it going to affect what moves you want to make? I don't think these guys back 8th, 10th, 12th are going to go quietly. Guys like, well, if Matthew Baker's able to get out ahead of the pace car here, he and Matt Lee aren't going to go quietly. They're going to try to get back up. Kenny McCullough, same thing. Chase Mastretta, Landon Felicki. I mean, these are guys that are going to try to go get a win by any means necessary. And unfortunately, the handling, is it going to prove to be an issue on this last restart? I'm really curious. I'm really watching, again, back around that 62, the 7, the 00, the 8, the 03. I'm looking back around that group for somebody to make the first real bonsai move of the night that we have not yet seen at this point in the race.
And while we get ready to go back green here, lights are off on the pace car. That signals 1 to go. We take a brief look at the poster payouts here for tonight. Again, this was based off of 30 drivers. We had 27, so going to be a bit lower than this, but it gives you the general idea. 142 to first. I believe that's 103 to second, 97 to third, 85 to fourth, 80 to fifth, and 63 to sixth. And the reason I bring that up, Dawson, is because one big thing that we've kind of seen change this season, you know, different from prior seasons, is those payouts get extended a bit further, all the way back to the top 6 instead of, say, what it normally was, which was top 4. And I think overall I like to see that idea because, you know, it gives you more of a chance as a driver. When it's top 4, if you think about that coming to a finish, if you're 2x2, that's the first 2 rows. If you're 3 wide, you've got to be on the front row basically to get money. Otherwise, you have to hope that you're the lucky guy on the second row. So good to see that, and that certainly opens the opportunity up for some more drivers.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I always love to see the payouts get extended a little bit. It kind of makes it a little more lucrative, again, to make that big move. Try to get into the money, try to get into a spot where you can win the race. It makes it a little bit more lucrative for these drivers. And with a late race restart, you only have 2 laps to do it. If you're 10th, 12th, 14th, you got to go now. Right when the green flag drops, you have to get your partners, you have to get in line, and you got to go. You don't have time to sit around and wait. It takes a while to build a run in this race car. You got to go do it while you have a chance. Who's going to make the big move here on the green-white checker?
Time to go. Pay windows open. Who wants to be a winner at Daytona? We're getting ready to find out. Overtime number 1 is underway. Green flag back in the air, and it's a good restart from the front row. Jones and Basin, both of those 2 cars actually off to the races with a good start, but everybody else did not get going. The outside's going to be the lane that gets the advantage. Ward will get clear down into turn 1, but he's not going to take it, at least not yet. He's going to stay up top here and try to bleed the temps out for Garrett Main so that if he jumps down, Jones will have enough to push him all the way to the finish. Still no help out back, and it's a 5-car pack leading the way onto the super stretch.
Oh, man, these guys from Davenport on back are going to have a monster run when they get there. They're going to be seriously flying when they get to these race cars. Velicki is going to be the first one on the scene. Where does the 62 go for One Stop Motorsports? He hangs on the bottom. I'm kind of surprised. He goes right to the bottom of the racetrack. Dylan Jones looks to the outside of Ward. He may get a look at it. Almost trouble out back. Mike Davenport got way out of line, and several cars are in the fight. White flag, 1 lap to go at Daytona, and as they head for 1, it's a drag race. Jones outside, Ward inside, Kenny McCullough to the outside with Josh McCullough in line. Do they have enough steam to get to the front? They may just. Look at the run those 2 cars have.
Where did the 3 and the 05 come from? The 2 McCullough Motorsports teammates trying to make something happen as they rocket onto the Daytona Super Stretch for the final time here tonight. 2x2 up front, 3 wide further back. Jones and Ward lead the way into turn number 3. Do they have enough to make it all the way to the finish? Ken McCullough Jr. still up top. Velicki's going to go around. There they go up front. They're trying to hold on to it. 3 wide. Dylan Jones leads final time off of turn 4. Jones on the bottom. Garrett up top. Side by side all the way to the checkers. Garrett Mains wins it at Daytona.
The champ finds a way to steal one again. Garrett Mains somehow, some way gets back to the line first after chaos ensues in the tail end of that last lap. And boy, you can already tell he's already starting to celebration. He's not back around the line yet, and he's already celebrating.
Well, he was happy to get all the stage wins last season, but if there was one thing he could have got more of, he would have told you it was actual race wins. And you said it, he's off to a good start this season, looking to maybe go back-to-back with that championship title. And man, oh man, that was a crazy sequence of events on that last lap with the wreck out back and the near wreck that we had up front, but they all hold on as they're wrecking it up big time now. I don't think Garrett's going to have a chance to bring it around to celebrate, so let's go back and take a look at this last lap, or I guess I should say this last half a lap coming to the checkered flag. I mean, this got absolutely wild, and it all starts here coming into turn 3. Watch Landon Velicki here. Just gets a little loose under the 8 of Mastretta. Not sure if there was contact, but that car gets sideways, and then the 2 of Dylan Basin. Big save with the push from Chase Mastretta. He's down low. Jones makes a block, but just more help lined up top. 2 versus 4, and the top with the advantage. Garrett Mains gets it by about a car length at the line.
Yeah, fun finish, and exactly, I think, what we all kind of expected out of this race in terms of what we saw out of the tires and the handling all night, the aggression we saw right there at the end. Man, Kenny McCullough, Josh McCullough, they just ran out of steam. I thought they had enough of a run. If they had timed it up a little bit, where they were closer to the front, I think they would have had enough. They needed a third car and just never got the help. And at the line, Garrett Maines, he steals another one, his first win of the season, and first since winning the championship back in the championship race last season. So Garrett Maines, he's celebrating tonight. It's the winner here at Daytona.
First of the season, but don't think that it will be the last. All right, taking a look at your final results here tonight. Again, Garrett Maines was your race winner. Dylan Jones second. Chase Mastretta rounds out the podium tonight in third. Good cash spot for him. Ken McCullough Jr., I mean, would you have guessed it after the damage he had to come back and finish fourth here tonight? That's got to feel like a win in his book. Dylan Basin in fourth, and then Joshua McCullough rounding out your top six. And that is the last money spot here tonight. John Ward 7th, Brock Westerlund back in 8th, Jared Haynes at 9th, and J.R. Miller finishes with a top 10.
Matthew Baker finishes 11th tonight. Mike Davenport in 12th. Evan Carlbon back in the 13th position. Jeff Merck in the 14th spot. Richard Elliott finishes 15th. Landon Vetlicki 16th. Matt Lee 17th. Joe Huerta in 18th. Brian Bassard in the 19th spot. And Mark Mondell rounds out the top 20.
Finishing 21st here tonight is Jimmy Emos in the 98, Mitch Regattas 22nd, Mark Math 23rd, Joey Galati in 24th with Jonathan Herbert in 25th, Justin Mills 26th, Christopher McCullough rounds out the field tonight as he finishes in 27th. All right, we're going to go get your top three in here for interviews. Stick with us. We'll be right back at Daytona. Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. We're going to start first here tonight with your third place finisher. For RMR eSports, it's Chase Mastretta. Chase, this is Austin up in the booth. You got a copy?
Yes, sir.
Well, first cash of the season, first podium of the season. And boy, what a great race it was for you. You had a pretty good run going all night, and you cash in and get the finish when it matters most. Tell us about those last two laps, and looked like you almost got collected in a wreck right there at the end. How were you able to hold on?
I mean, it felt like there right at the end, Kenny was hooked on to me, and it just shot me down the track, and I really couldn't do anything about it. But coming on the backstretch, I saw an opening behind Garrett, and I was just like, I have to get behind him. And then luckily, I got behind him because the person that I was behind got loose, and that was where that big wreck happened. So that helped me out a lot.
Well, I know it's early in the season, but to get a podium this quickly, you didn't have really many teammates in the field here tonight or guys to necessarily work with, and you still found a way. How does this momentum help and carry forward?
It feels good. I'm sitting top 5 currently in points, so this will be a good boost. Baker not making it kind of helps, so we'll take every little bit we can.
Absolutely. Well, before we let you head out here tonight to round off a good podium finish, is there anyone you'd like to thank or shout out?
Shout out RMR eSports, Matthew Lee. Thanks for all the help tonight. Richard Elliott.
And thank you for talking to us. Well, again, Chase, congrats on that podium finish, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, sir.
All right, and now that'll bring us up to tonight's second place finisher, Dylan Jones. Dawson Wise stands by with him.
Hey, Dylan, it's the boys in the booth. You got a copy?
Sure do.
Oh, good finish there. A chaotic finish. Seems like everybody was moving around, trying to save the car, trying to get the right run at the end. In the end, a little bit short for you, but it's still a good night, a second-place finish, a productive points day, and a nice payout as well for you. So take me through that last sequence to the end. Is there anything you could have done differently there to try to win the race away from Garrett Maines?
I had some more driver skill because these things were a handful at the end, and when I made that move up, I was sliding, and Garrett got to my bumper a little bit, and I pretty much just drove back to the bottom because I was just drifting the corner, trying not to die. So if we could have held it up there in front of Garrett, we would have had the W easily. But at that point, I was just trying not to die and get the best finish we could. But that was a heck of a race. That was tons of fun.
Well, look, we kind of talked about it earlier. We tend to see this not only on Tuesdays, but in general, where you kind of start mid-pack, just hang around. That's kind of what I called it, was just hang around. Not really right at the very tail end, but close enough to sniff the front, but not close enough to be involved in any of the messes that happen, especially on a night like tonight. But at the end, you're able to find the right moves, on whether on pit road, whether on the racetrack, to put yourself in a position. Just take us through your mindset. Take us through your strategy, how you prepare for races like this, and how you go about executing, getting to the front at the end.
Just I take it easy. I mean, there's a group of these like 6 guys or so in here that they love to lead, and they'll race like the last lap every lap up there, and that's just not me. I hate doing that, so I kind of just let them do their thing up there. Sometimes they wreck each other, and it really benefits you then. But I just like to ride, let the guys that want to run up front, and I can usually maneuver my way. Some pit strategy, taking this race, you really with some pit strategy with when you took tires and stuff. So I had taken tires a little earlier, so the last stop there, I just took fuel and I jumped some spots to get up there and get the track position that was needed.
Well, you do just that. A second place finish for you here tonight. A great, very productive points night. It's going to help you a lot in the points standings as well. So before we let you go and enjoy the second place finish, is there anybody you'd like to thank or shout out?
I'll just give a big thanks to Ron, Austin, and you, Dawson, for doing this stuff every Tuesday night for us all.
Well, we appreciate you talking to us here for a second. Congratulations on the second place finish tonight. Go enjoy it. Go celebrate. And we will talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys.
All right, and now that will bring us to tonight's race winner, last season's champ, Garrett Maines. Garrett, this is Austin up in the booth. You got a copy?
Yes, sir.
Well, you get the job done here tonight, and man, it seemed like you led a lot of this race, even with all the chaos that was going on. So, I mean, the first question is, how were you able to be so dominant in a race where handling was such an issue for so many drivers?
I mean, I think there was a long period of that race where it was just, maintaining and cycling at the right times, and we had really good people up front, and just, everybody was doing their part pushing. So it was, everything was going really smooth there for a while, and the strategy didn't really get flipped on its head, but so much. So there wasn't a lot of time for, people to get disorganized. But I mean, there at the end of the race, that's when it kind of got wild, and I was behind the 8-ball because of the pit stop. I made a mistake, just misjudging for the temperature and the angle of approach, and locked the front tires when I went to, slow down for the pit stop. So, came out like midfield, not where I wanted to be, had to pick my way back through the field, get myself into position, and everything just fell right there at the end. I don't know if I could have been in a better spot. So, the last 2 races I've gotten hooked 100 feet from the line, and the curse continued. If I win the stage, I lose the race. Finally, that turns around. I guess there's just not allowed to be money on the line for the stage, because there was nothing on the line tonight. So I'll happily take the win.
Well, the stage was actually the next thing I was getting ready to talk about. And yeah, you mentioned it. I was going to say, last season, all the stage wins that you're able to rack up was what kind of kept you in that battle for the regular season championship. But you've already found a stage win here tonight. You get the race win along with it. And, do you feel like that kind of changes the momentum when you're able to get that win out of the way this early in the season?
I think I might be the points leader now. So I think that was a huge change in momentum. I was 21 points out coming into this. I got the pole, got the most laps led. Got the lap led a lap, obviously. Got the win, got the stage win. Like anything that I could do to gain points tonight, thankfully I did, and that makes up for the fact that I've gotten wrecked at the line the last 2 races, coming to the potential win or a top 3. So, I'll take it.
Yeah, tonight certainly was checkers instead of wreckers. That's the good news for not only you, but your championship hopes and regular season championship as you look to go back-to-back, of course, this season, defend the championship. So before we let you head out tonight, is there anyone you want to thank or shout out?
Yeah, absolutely. Got to give a huge shout out to Scott at MCU Body, the guys at Riker Performance for all of their support this season. We've had good cars all year, so it's really nice to be able to go out on a Monday night and know we got a piece. But thank you to them. Also, thank you to Lennox, Left Court Brothers, and FGR XL for their support.
Thank you, of course, for talking to us again. Congrats on that win. Garrett ran a great race here tonight, and we'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Have a good night.
All right, well, that's just about going to wrap up our coverage here tonight. But overall, certainly a chaotic race in Dawson. I know there was a lot of wrecks, but it's just there's something about seeing these cars on the hot track that just it's so interesting because it really does separate the men from the boys in terms of who can keep that car under them to have a shot at the end. And then the race at the end is a whole beast in of itself, and who can hold on. And tonight it was Garrett Maines who got the job done.
Completely agree. The reason I love the Xfinity car so much is because it's a little bit harder to drive. It kind of, creates a little bit of a gap in terms of, you have to be able to not only handle the car, but also handle the runs, handle your moves, handle the draft, all those things that we're used to, plus add on the element of handling. And tonight, it was to a whole new extreme. The temperature was off the charts tonight. It created some very interesting, fun racing that we're not really used to, some conditions that some guys had some problems with, and it was very interesting to watch them combat it. And in the end, Garrett Maines, a winner again this season, assuming he makes his 9 starts. He'll be back in the playoffs to defend his championship.
Yes, he will. All right, well, that'll do it for us here tonight. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, we hope you enjoyed. That's it for me, Austin Green, alongside Dawson Wise on PGR eSports. Until next time, have a good night.